Hey, welcome everybody. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you. I'm James Ashby. I also have a special guest on today. He's a gentleman that has been in law enforcement for a extended period of time. We have Tim Wiedemeyer's on the phone or on the line with us today. He's going to give us his perspective of how he actually has come into this business for training and actually providing financial services through his own family and his own experience, as well as the opportunity to really start and own your own business. So I figured who better to hear from than an actual law enforcement agent and a gentleman who really has kind of walked in your shoes as first responders. So Tim, I'll just pause there, let you kind of introduce yourself, let you tell people how long you've been in the business, and then we'll start to ask you a couple of questions if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, James, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Tim Wiedemeyer. I'm currently a sergeant with a police department out here in Southern California. I've been an officer come up on 19 years now. I've worked for two different agencies in two different counties. I also am the union president for our department, which consists of about 115 officers. I've been the president for 8 years, and then also a president for what's considered 3 counties for the last year. So with my experience with not only the law enforcement, but with dealing with individual personnel issues all the way from family things, work things, and predominantly some conversations regarding money, and also being the lead negotiator. There's lots of avenues that mix match each other, which definitely put me in the position to look further on how I can help not just the citizens that I work for, but the officers that I supervise, and also a part of being their union president.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate you joining us today and kind of, spreading this information. We know that as we help families all around the country, we're one of the fastest growing financial services organizations in the world. And we also have some of the top earners as well. And that just kind of culminates to a lot of what we're going to talk about today and how we actually help families. So the first thing I wanted to just kind of highlight is, how do we first help the responders and their families? And the first way is really we offer a no-cost professional financial review. And just kind of thinking back to my own family, my own career, my dad was actually a state trooper for the state of Virginia, and I remember him working odd jobs and trying to continue to earn to care for his family. But I also remember him spending 80, 90 hours a week and not seeing him a lot. And so the one thing that he always wanted was to always have better for us and his family. And so that was something that was really impactful to me. So when you're talking to individuals that you work with and some of the law enforcement agencies, Tim, can you kind of give us some of your exposure? How did you get introduced to this business? Would you mind sharing your thoughts and information?
Yeah. So about 3 or 4 years ago, the CEO of our business was able to come into our police agency and give a quick 15-20 minute briefing regarding finances and kind of like the tax direction and different programs that are out there to protect my family and myself. So there was an introduction through a briefing, and then I sat down with the CEO, like I said, about 3 or 4 years ago, and did a whole holistic approach of what money was coming in and what money was going out. And he kind of got us dialed in, places to cut, or trim, and then some other savings plans that definitely benefited my wife and my family. Like I said, about 3 years ago.
Perfect. So, no, we really appreciate that. And thanks for the information. I know just even in my world of both my wife and I working as well, there's always that information that, and I kind of like to get your take on this. I remember I also sat with the same gentleman who was our CEO, and I remember him telling us, hey, you might have been doing it wrong all those years necessarily. And it becomes a moment where of clarity that you start to understand that how you should be saving, why you should be saving, and some of these other things. There's something called the Rule 72. Have you heard of that, Tim? And could you maybe explain it to some of the first responders and why that's so valuable to understand?
Well, yeah, because it would take, the Rule 72 is at a 1% return. It would take 72 years for you to double your money.
Okay, perfect. So, and then obviously if you take that and factor it, if you're earning 10% on your interest, then it's closer to 7.2 years that you can
exactly.
double your money. So it's a really impactful rule, something I had never heard of, even throughout my entire career until I got a little bit older into my professional career.
Well, it's funny too. What's funny about it, James, is when you have the approach that's done to the both of us, it's such a simplistic approach that kind of makes you, if you're not money savvy, you can still sit down and understand what's going on. And to me, what's sad is that none of this is taught in college courses anymore, high school classes. You know, we get these kids, hey, go to college and start building your own life, but we don't teach them how to manage money. And that's what I love about this. For a free, simplistic approach on how to deal with your money and save is what I think is most important and valuable.
Perfect. So when we actually look to help these first responders, what are the things that we focus on? Is it family obligations with insurance? Is it retirement planning? Is it tax mitigation? What's your experience as you sit down with the police officers that you serve and you help? And I know you're working with a variety of unions and people are coming to you in hordes. Can you kind of give me a take on what they might experience in this first financial review for their own family and their friends?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to help them understand just exactly what their pension means, what a pension formula is and what that means, and the tax implications when they do retire. And then the difference between exempt and deferred. A lot of individuals just need that little update on there. And then obviously the protection, if something were to happen catastrophic, that your family is set up. So then we go into the life insurance plans. Would probably be third or fourth down the list. And then just the overall education of the products that are out there.
Perfect. No, I really appreciate that. And I know we were talking in one of our sessions just recently about a couple of police officers that unfortunately they had passed away in the line of duty, and then also another person who did not pass away in the line of duty. Could you kind of share your thoughts and your perspective? Because I know you have three small children. Could you kind of share your perspective on why this is so important for people individually?
For me, straight up, if something happens to me, I don't want my family to have to go to a GoFundMe to protect what my wife and I have built for our kids. I want my wife to be protected. I want my kids to be protected. And to understand if something were to happen with me, we have financially set up the household to where it can still function as it is without my paycheck every 2 weeks. And that's why I've taken it very seriously recently, because we see GoFundMes that are set out, and you realize there's products out there that can prevent the GoFundMes, because the GoFundMe is not guaranteed. You can put any number, that's the goal, but that doesn't mean you're going to reach that goal. Right. And that's why the importance of understanding the products that are out there can secure your family if anything were to happen.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that, Tim. So there's another way that we actually can help these first responders. And I kind of think back to my own father, who, again, worked those odd hours, middle of the night shifts, would go and help move furniture for odd dollars. I mean, back when my father was actually, in law enforcement, it didn't pay a ton of money. So people were always looking for odd jobs to actually help benefit their families and make sure that their kids do better than they do. So help us understand, how did you get into this business? I know you said that you were introduced by Rusty, but and I know that you've had great success in a short period of time. Could you kind of tell us, how you got introduced directly into this business? How did our CEO invite you to it? And then how did you slowly step your way into this, even on a part-time basis?
Yeah. So I was the same way as your father. When I first started, I was doing some college teaching on the side for a criminal justice program for a small college. And then from there, I was also doing Friday and Saturday nights at one of the local amusement parks, undercover security for bars and that kind of stuff. So how I got into this was about seven months ago. Rusty and I were just, we've become friends, and on a phone conversation, and he just asked me how stuff was going. And I expressed some frustration with the overall profession, the direction of it, and just my overall, what my family was seeing and what we were going through regarding law enforcement. And we just had an open blunt conversation, and I was lucky enough that Rusty was coming into town that week to go do follow-up with our local police agency. And we met for coffee in an afternoon, and 7 months later, here we are.
Excellent. So, well, again, I know that you've been extremely successful in your period of time, and what I'd like to do is really kind of, I know you said you've been in the business for about 6 months or so. Um, how do you see what you do each and every day? How does that affect you or make you feel with helping some of your peers? Can you kind of share that?
Yeah, it's been rewarding because I know the potential of what this is growing out to be for them individually. I think at first they're overwhelmed. They just see money going out of pocket, but they don't realize what they are now setting themselves up for the future. Some of these younger cops that we're kind of helping out, we're setting up with a life insurance plan, but they have no idea just the supplemental retirement plan we also set them up with. And it won't be for a few years till they digest it, understand that they realize like, oh my, that's some good, that's a very good product that Tim got me into or Rusty got me into. And so just being able to help officers on an individual basis has been rewarding. With the profession of law enforcement, you're continually out there in the community. You're dealing with everybody on their worst day. Nobody calls the police department or the police officers just to say hello. You're going to their house for the worst day. So officers continually have a negative aspect in their mind. So when you can do something positive for the officer itself and for their family, that's what's been most rewarding.
Absolutely. So, well, and that kind of leads into kind of our next conversation on how we can help first responders as well. We actually have, much like what Rusty did with you, we actually have opportunities to own your own business. And it really is the only business I've ever experienced. And trust me, I've looked at purchasing some businesses in my career. It's the only business that you can essentially get your license and you're off to the races, where it's just a few $100s and you have the potential to earn a significant amount of money just by talking and visiting with individuals and helping them. Would you kind of give us some of your experience? I know you've been here for about 6 months, and I know you're working pretty extensively with quite a few of your police officer unions and some of the other folks to help them design a future that they would want. Can you kind of give us some of your experiences of the success that you've had and kind of the growth path?
Yeah, it's just overall reaching out and getting the hardest part has been having officers have an open mind or let their guard down. So much we always walk around with our guard up just with our profession, our time on, our experience, and being able to get through that guard, which I think it helped me being a police officer. There's already a level of trust right there,
Right.
and getting into them and getting to sit down and then having a basic conversation, and not trying to come off as anybody that's better than anybody else. Just come with a very common sense, simplistic view, and it starts opening their eyes, and the trust starts growing, and then that's how it's kind of spider webbed out a little bit. It's just coming in very simplistic, talking to some of the more higher level people of some of these unions. So if I can get into the higher level and these people see it, and then from there they're able to push down a good positive message down the ranks, and that's how we've kind of gotten bigger and bigger.
Perfect. So would you kind of, now I don't ever like to cookie coat this, if you will, and just say this is a very, very simple job, because it does take a little bit of work and effort. Would you kind of explain to people that might be considering, if it is a first responder, it says, hey, I would rather be on my phone, rather be talking to people, rather be helping families versus I'm moving furniture or I'm going to go stand on my feet for 12 hours. How do you see the two different companies or two different opportunities to earn revenue? How do you see them differently? And how do you see the pay being different? What's your take on that?
So yes, you're exactly right. This is not something you can sit at a desk and just kind of click buttons and money shows up in your account. You have to work. You have to educate yourself. You gotta accept the word no and move on.
Right.
You got to be confident, but it does take work. I think some people just want something given to them. Nothing in life is given. It does take some work, some energy, and just sometimes I just want an hour or two break. Well, I gotta get on the horn and start making some phone calls or meeting with some people to make that continually happen. But no, there's nothing that's ever given to you. It will take some work. The license alone in California is a documented 52 hours of study.
Right.
So, which can be it's a huge chunk. So it took me just over a month to get licensed, just because I was working a full-time job. My wife works a full-time job. I got 3 kids. So we have a lot going on in the house. So every open minute I had, I was studying to get that 52 hours in. And I took that test. I think I had the test done within 5 weeks.
Perfect. So yeah, no, that's perfect. I really appreciate that. So let's talk about earning potential, because when you start to open a business, the first thing I've always heard with businesses is, especially if it's a startup, you essentially have to pay your dues for a long period of time before you start to see a positive return. Can you kind of share with me, like, in this short period of 6 months where you have your license, you now are able to help families with products and solutions, how are you doing financially? Are you excited, or just as excited, or more excited than ever? Can you kind of give the group your feel?
Yeah, excited. I don't show very much excitement. It's part of my personality, because whatever I did last month, I want to do better this month. So I'm not a huge celebratory guy. I was like, yeah, all right, we got there. I'm never the top. I always want to keep going because I can always better myself. So yeah, the earning potential is what you make of it and what you believe you can gain. I am making already faster than I thought I was, making decent money, and to the point of where things can start getting set, or things at home actually get a little better, and you can start stashing away even for a better retirement. Or if you got a bill that's there, boom, you can pay that bill off. Or if you got to start saving for a car or something like that, you can actually start picturing having enough cash to pay for a new car, not thinking about having to figure out interest rates on a car payment and all that jazz.
Excellent. So yeah, I remember we were sitting on a call recently, and somebody had mentioned to me that you've doubled your income at least the last 3 or 4 months, every month. And
Yes.
So you start to have that growth. But just as important, there's opportunity when you're building a business, as I understanding, and please chime in. As you build the business, you're actually building a legacy for your family, so that as you build and continue to build, you can choose to sell that business. You can choose to leave it to your kids. You can teach your kids the business. What's your take on that, about leaving a different legacy for your family?
Yeah, no, absolutely. To be able to set my family up for long-term future is absolutely the most important thing that I've realized I have the capability to do now. If you asked me a year ago, it's going to be like, okay, I got a pension, I've got some deferred comp, and I got these little accounts I can get my kids started on something, if it's a college fund or whatever it is later on. Now I realize that there's a lot more potential I have in myself that I can leave for my family. And maybe even as my kids get older and they watch this and they learn it, they might be jumping right in at 18, 19, 20 years old and want to help out also.
Absolutely. No, that's perfect. I really appreciate it. So just as kind of a final wrap up, if you will, so that we can share this with other first responders, what would you say to them, putting yourself back in that time zone and before you ever met Rusty and the team here at Transamerica and World Financial Group, before you ever met them, how do you see your life previous to now? Like, where do you have different visions, dreams, goals that now you can see a bigger future for your family? Can you kind of maybe put that into perspective? And could you maybe share why you would encourage any first responder to do this as a business?
Well, first and foremost is it takes a little bit of time to realize maybe you don't understand completely about what your finances are. And as a lot of us are type A personalities, and we kind of have that guard up, if somebody hits you with something like, hey, I might be able to help you here, you're first very standoffish and like, no, I'm good. Have the peace of mind and have the open mind to allow have somebody sit down with you and just kind of break things down. When you see a third person come in and actually put numbers in front of you that you and your significant other aren't paying attention to, and say, hey, this is where you're at, and this is where you'll be in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, it's kind of a humbling experience. And I'm so happy I gave Rusty the opportunity to sit down with my wife and I, and we are at the point we are. And that's just a kind of like a passion and the drive I have right now is to help officers in this, the same help that was given to me. Over the last couple of years, we've taken hits as law enforcement across the United States in many different fashions. And at least if I could sit down with a family and I walk out of there and they had a wonderful experience and now they can vision something positive for retirement and more money than they expected, then that is a win all the way around for all of us.
Absolutely. So, and then anybody who is considering doing this business, what's your, especially the first responders who want some part-time work or even a full-time, we have quite a few people who have transitioned to full-time. What could they expect, and what's your take on that? Is that something that you envision yourself moving into a full-time position in the near future or in the long run?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to continue. I tell you what, if you're hungry and you have some motivation, you're coachable, this business could be very worthwhile for you. That's the biggest thing. You've got to be able to say to yourself, you know what, I want to change, or I want to make more money, and I'm willing to put in the work for it, but also be coachable.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no end. And if you are that person, by all means, this is something you should definitely look into.
Okay, perfect. Well, Tim, we really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today, and certainly thank you for your service. I know that people really do appreciate it. I think there's more people that appreciate it than the people that, kind of, think opposite of that, if you will. I think the majority of society really appreciates the effort and the family sacrifices that you put in to actually care for the community, because it really does go noticed for a lot of people. And so with that, we'll wrap up the meeting. Tim, do you have any other pearls of wisdom, or we'll sign off?
No, James, that was great. Thank you very much for the questions. And everybody listening to this, don't be embarrassed to sit down with somebody and just figure out your finances. It will play huge positive roles in the future. When you do get ready to retire, you'll know where you're at, and you know what that money is capable of doing for you, and it will be a blessing in retirement.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tim. We really appreciate your time. Hope you have a blessed week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.